Hey guys, so check it. In this video, I'm going to be introducing you to a magical process that's going to enable you to figure out what is the best camera for you. So not the best camera in general, because that's so subjective, but what's the best camera for you? So we're gonna be over at Centro Islamic, Islam Spanish. I don't think y'all can see it, because let me stop it down. Boom. Y'all can probably see it now. We're about to meet Alex in the house. Maybe there's some other folks. Doing good, bro, doing good. This is the updated Studio Andalusia podcasting studio.
That's it. We already recorded some episodes, you know, so
yeah.
We're getting it rolling. Now I'll kick it up another gear, and that's what we're doing today.
Yo, let's do this. I brought too many bags with me. At first I was like, you know what, let me just not do anything. Like, let's just put it. I'm like, no, we should vlog it. Well, you know what, let me bring this little guy right here. And I'm like, hey, we should do a multi-camera, and that's why I just brought everything.
Nice.
That's the one downside of this classic camera. There's a M6, which came out like 3 years ago. This is the M1 original. It's funny, every time I say M6, I'm like, I want that big double. Like, I want the original M6 from like 2013. So what we're gonna do, there's a process called a decision matrix, right? What this does is that it allows you to chart out. Let's clean up this board first. Boom, boom. Oh man. I need some wipes, yo. That's the other thing. I'm looking to get the M6. It's $350 body only used.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's funny though, because I was looking at my Amazon history back in 2013. I bought the EOS M for the same price.
Nice.
Right? Because it had just price dropped from $800 to $350, some sort of sale, because Canon was like, you know what, nobody's buying it.
Just liquidate them.
Yeah, but then it just took off. That price drop put it in the range that people are like, you know what, I'm willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
And so they kept it, but they didn't support that format as they should have. Sony comes in and rocks the house, right? Because Canon only made a crop sensor mirrorless. And Sony's like, well, nobody's making full frame. So they did that. When it comes to deciding for the camera, there's really two categories that we're gonna be looking at. Category number one has to do with studio, okay? So in studio, there's gonna be certain functionality, like a setup like we have here. There's gonna be certain functionalities that you need, but many of the functionalities that you need are almost diametrically opposed to doing what we're doing here, which is vlogging, right? Case in point, right? In a studio camera, it doesn't matter if you have autofocus.
No.
How often do you use autofocus?
No.
And if you do need to focus, you have somebody handling the focus on their own. But on a camera like this, it's very helpful to have autofocus. In fact, none of the cameras that I'm using do autofocus very well. So, and in fact, I actually ordered a lens for this. One of the original lenses that came out. Apparently, the thing that I learned along the way was that autofocusing works best with the native lens, right? So Canon camera, get the Canon EF mount, not EF mount, EF-M mount because of EOS M lens, and that would allow you to get the appropriate autofocus. Me, on the other hand, I'm like, yo, you know what? I want the best quality lens, right? So I went down 1950s, 1970s, classic manual lenses. And then I'm like, oh wait, let me try out this autofocus stuff. So I bought some other cheap autofocus, well not cheap, but affordable, but good quality, again, optical quality lenses. And then it turns out that because the mount is different from what the native mount is, it's like, it doesn't know how to autofocus because two different technologies. This is gonna be the first lens that I actually buy that's native. Okay. But at the same
time, likes the Frankenstein things, you know.
Yeah, I mean, so this right here is my original EOS M. Okay, so on one camera you can see my Lumix setup. I got a Lumix setup, but then I've got a adapter so I can put an EF lens on it with a deity, for acceptable vlogging. On top of that, I got this newer fluid head tripod, along with a the Manfrotto little tripod. So like basically assembled this from all over the place. But at the same time on here, you'll notice is the original EOS M. Then I've got a Movo little shotgun mic, so I have cleaner audio. I have a Canon FD lens from like the 1970s, an adapter for FD to EFM mount, ND filter, and then I bought this thing off of eBay, which then I put hot glue so I can have some grip, because this thing was super solid. I'm like, what's the point of a grip if I can't hold it, right? So I used some super glue. Let me just focus that up so y'all can see. I got super glued the handle just enough so that it allows me to grip with one hand, and I don't have to worry about it slipping and stuff. Like that's what I'm working with right now. But the downside is this thing right here, I can't put this in my pocket, right? I had the other camera, the G7X Mark III, which we recorded here last time. Great camera in terms of pocketability, but I wanted the ability to put lenses on there, right? And control that focus as I would deem fit. But then it's just like you're running into this problem where, okay, I got my lenses, but then I lose my pocketability, right? So the question is, can I find a manual lens that allows for pocketability? The reason for making a decision matrix like this is so that you can decide as to which ones are even worth trying out. Going based off of data alone and making a decision purchase right away may not be the best choice, unless it's like a clear winner, right? Or else you end up like me with a bunch of different cameras and you're just like, wait, hold on a second.
How do you go about figuring out what is the best camera for you? Just a quick hack for if you're wondering why we're recording in my car. The car, we got some people right behind my car, literally right behind the car. The car essentially is a great place to serve as essentially a sound isolated, a soundproof recording place that would allow for any of the audio that you record, especially if you're wired up into a microphone or something. It's as if you're in a sound booth. So that's one of the major perks and benefits of recording in your vehicle. And this is actually a quick hack for independent filmmakers that when they need to do some ADR, which is additional dialogue replacement, because it was too windy or something like that, then what they'll do is they'll get in their car, break out the shotgun mic, and then redo all of the some of the dialogue that was supposed to be in the script. So just a fun fact. But anyway, what are the things that you need to look for or look at when it comes to figuring out what the right camera is for you? Number one element of the decision matrix that you want to start and end with: price or cost. The second thing you want to consider is intent. But what is this camera for, right? After all of that is going to be user friendliness. The next major element has to do with mobility.
Now the question is, what degree of mobility? I could put this in a bag. I can put a pancake lens on it and put it in a cargo pant pocket, but I can't put it in a regular pocket.
Yeah.
Or we've got something like this, right? I can't even put this in a bag except that I took off the shotgun mic and the tripod. Then I can put it in a bag. And then you have mobility like this, where you can't even put that in a big bag except that it's taken apart, but you can carry it with you.
You can kind of put it in a bag.
Well, you have to take a thing off,
this
right?
off at minimum.
Yeah, like as it is.
Nah.
Like I could put this as is in a big bag.
Yeah.
Right, but this, as is like.
Yeah, it's
right?
like, this is like a one-story house, this is a three-story
yeah,
house.
And this right here is a skyscraper, right?
Yeah.
What is the degree of mobility that you're looking for? Like for me, like I'm looking for a bag, I'm looking for a camera that could essentially fit in a small bag like this. Now, the Canon EOS M fits the bill in that regard. The GH5 does not. I can't fit that into this tiny little bag, right? Sensor size. Now, here's the thing. The sensor size is going to determine a number of things, whether it be the dynamic range, it could be how much visual noise artifacts that come about in terms of, when it comes to low light, the dynamic range in terms of bright spots, how blown out or not blown out they are, or the dark spots, how much the shadows are crushed. Then you want to look at resolution and frame rates. 4K, a deal breaker for you. Are you cool with 1080p? In addition to resolution, you're looking at frame rates. Do you like 24p versus 30p versus 60p
60p for slow motion, or even more super slow motion and 120p. Like, what is the must-have? The next thing is going to be lens mount. If you already have lenses of a particular type, whether it's micro four thirds such as on a Panasonic, or you're looking for an EF M mount, which is on the Canon mirrorless, or you're looking for a full EF mount, if you already have lenses, that's going to influence your decision in that regard. Whether or not the camera has any kind of internal stabilization, whether that stabilization is actually sensor shift, like with this camera, I can move it around and the sensor is floating and it will kind of find, like, it'll try to stabilize the image as best as possible. This camera has no stabilization whatsoever. So like if I pick this thing up, right, it's gonna be like super like shaky. And whereas if I pick this up, right here, like I'm actually moving this in the same way that I was moving that one, right? And you can clearly see in terms of how stable the image is. There's certain things that are gonna be deal breakers for people. Like for example, for me, like the camera's gotta have a mic input. If it doesn't have a mic input, although I'm recording on a separate device, if I'm trying to vlog, I'm out and about, I'm trying to showcase stuff, I'm trying to demonstrate stuff, I need a mic input. Battery life is gonna be a determining factor because, like for example, on the GH5 with its native battery, I can go for like maybe 3 hours continuous recording, not a problem. However, on the EOS M, like I might go maybe 30 minutes before the battery dies. Another major factor that could be a deal breaker has to do with autofocus. It's funny because although this has autofocus, they're not very good autofocus. Now, I've never used this camera with a native lens, so maybe the autofocus is gonna be good, but like there's gonna be certain factors where like, hey, you know what? You're not even gonna consider a camera if it doesn't have good autofocus. Quick review, guys. If you're trying to make a decision as to what camera to buy, right? Look at things like dynamic range. You want to look at your output in terms of HDMI or SDI, whether or not mic input is important to you, or XLR. Does it have interchangeable lens and what mount? Battery life, autofocus, preamps, meaning for audio, 4K or not, or do you want more than that? 6K, 8K. Mobility, to be able to run and gun, in terms of how do you define good mobility, being able to put in your pocket versus a backpack versus an entire like a heavy case. Or in terms of frame rate options, 8-bit versus 10-bit. Sensor size, does that matter to you? Unlimited recording time, as well as overheating options and internal stabilization, digital versus actual sensor versus, or just doing it with your lenses. In the case of the work that's done here, autofocus, as long as it works, it has to be good. But like if you're gonna have somebody behind the camera for the most part, then I guess it would be nice to have, but I guess the value is based off of anyone who's running with it. Even on my GH5 over here, right? Even when I don't have a native lens, I can, like, the issue is that it has autofocus. Autofocus tends to be on point, but it's not continuous. Like continuous autofocus is not gonna be good, except that I have a native lens. But touch autofocus, if a person is stationary, or I'm more or less like, we're just like this, right? I can just tap the screen and it just captures the person once and I'm set. The issue comes in if I'm like running and gunning, high dynamic activity or kinetic activity that's happening, then you may not need that level of autofocus. But it's hard to tell unless you rent and try it out.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key thing. The next step here is to rent and test.
I'm gonna try out
Right?
this one each. I think.
Let me know when you guys have it in town. I would love to play around with it.
Yeah, we'll check it out and see.
Yeah.
You know, I think the only concern that I have is the whole lens. It has its own lens setup and
We just need the adapter.
adapter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, one of the things that I've done is, so I've actually bought an adapter for every system mount. So for E mounts, for EF mount, for EF M mount. The one that I still have to purchase is the L mount. And once I have all of them, that's why I'm just gonna go on a shopping spree of like once a month renting a lens, not a lens, a camera, just to kind of see. But yeah, I mean, like having these mounts
in-house, and they're not expensive, relatively speaking. Like the most expensive, it might be like $200,
Okay.
right? It's cheaper than a lens,
Yeah, for sure.
right? So I would say get yourself bunch of these mounts, just buy them, right? And then rent the bodies, so that way, and obviously you have all EF lenses, so just buy whatever to EF, and you're good.
Nice.
And you can always sell them,
Right.
right? Buy off eBay used,
Yeah.
right? And they'll probably go for around the same if you're done with it.
Cool. Well, I think we hacked the matrix over here.
But when you attach numbers and values to what you're looking for, you'll be able to make a decision. And even in this case, the decision was, what are we going to rent?
Yeah.
Not even what are we going to buy.
Exactly. Because we can't just go in, blind. We got to try it out, make sure it fits what we want.
Yeah.
And there isn't that huge learning curve, right, with a new piece of equipment.
Yeah.
We want to get to producing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, really appreciate you coming out. And
It was fun.